Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of What's News in Healthcare Social Media. I'm Kathy Brown of Brown Knows Social Media, and today's guest is Reed Smith. Would you like to say hi, Reed?
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always fun to do this, and it's been a couple of years. I know it was on a different hangout, but that we're on with a much larger group. But I appreciate you having me on.
Well, it was a pleasure when we hung out before, and for those of you who don't know Reed, there is a Scott treatment video floating around that I was hoping to post on the event page last minute, and I didn't get to it. But Reed is founder and president of Social Health Institute, is that right?
That's it.
And the chief social strategist for Gray Digital Group, and also serves as the advisory board member to Mayo Clinic Center for Social Media.
Yeah.
So you have a long list of things that you do. So I'm looking forward to you sharing all that wisdom that you have.
Well, hopefully I can share a little bit. I always kid, although it's probably really not a joke, but I know just a little bit about a whole lot of things, and probably not a whole lot about any one thing. So. Hopefully, I've got some interesting insights, but should be fun. Should be fun.
Well, we've got a lot of people joining us on the event page. I'm kind of watching multiple computers here. So let's get started. We have a lot of really good articles that I'd like to touch on, and the first one I want to talk about is the article. All of the articles are posted on the event page, by the way, for those of you who are viewing on Google+. They will also be posted. They're posted on my website, brownnose.com, at the Live tab, and they will be added later on to the YouTube channel. But our first article is How Google Searches Can Help Determine Population Health. And I thought this was an interesting article because it talks about how the New York Times identified, what was the term they used? Hard to live in places.
Right.
And they noticed that there was a big difference in what people searched for, health-wise and otherwise, when they lived in these hard-to-live places as opposed to in the more affluential places. I want to talk about how that data can really change how we speak to our audience. You want to give your thoughts on it, Reed?
Well, I think in recent years, I think social media has probably been the catalyst to this. But historically speaking, this data has just not been accessible. There's been no way to know these things. Healthcare as a topic has not been that much of a focal point, I guess, for a lot of the larger players in this field, whether it be Google or Facebook or et cetera. They've been focused on other areas. So I think you sort of population health, big data, the pharma and medical device industries obviously have fueled this a lot, but just the accessibility of a lot of this data, I think, now has gotten us to a point, and people start seeing these really, really large numbers of bad debt that's written off by hospitals, or Obamacare obviously was a big term in the ACO models and things like that. So I think these are becoming topics that are more I guess on people's minds.
Yeah. Well, I'm posting on the event page some additional links because if you actually go from the article that I first list and you go to the article about the New York Times talking about this research, they share a little bit more insight into how they came up with this data, and there's some good information there. But then if you dig a little deeper, you can actually get to the report of where the worst places, the hardest places to live are. And I must say, Kentucky was beaten up pretty bad. And I came from Kentucky, not originally, but that was the last place I lived before I moved to Tennessee. And there is a difference in the lifestyle when you live in an area where there isn't as much available. And I don't know that it was necessarily the hardest place to live, but when you live in a town where all you have is a Walmart, and you only have what is stocked in those small groups of stores, you do change your lifestyle. You eat worse, there's more obesity, there's definitely more tobacco because they grow tobacco. So I think there were a lot of things that played into this that maybe weren't identified, but overall, to be able to look at a report like this and really glean some of the topics that you should be addressing in your specific area is really valuable information to us.
I think so, and I think that does obviously vary a lot by market, and a lot of it, to your point, is what is accessible in that market, not even from just a healthcare standpoint, just from an entertainment standpoint or whatever it may be. We've gotten instantaneous in the way that we live, and so everything's out of convenience. And so you start looking at fast food or whatever it may be, which directly correlates to obesity and things like that you mentioned. I think you as healthcare marketers, and just as a disclaimer, I come from a hospital marketing background, and that's primarily what we do is work with hospitals and healthcare organizations and healthcare systems. So I see things through those lenses probably a little differently than somebody with a pharma background or medical device or a nonprofit or whatever it may be. But as we look at the way we market what we do, understanding what our community needs are always important. And so if you're that sole community provider and you're a hospital in a smaller town and you understand that there's just a Walmart and a handful of these other options, you can start tailoring messaging that way versus, I live in Austin, Texas now, and there's tons of opportunities and reasons to be outside and exercise, and a lot of weekend warriors and mountain biking and running around the lake and things like that. And so the messaging is a little bit different, and the opportunities are different. But there's a lot of foundations in most areas or parts of the country that do a lot of community health needs assessments and things like that. And so those are great places to start to really understand, who is your community, and what are they doing, and what do they need.
Yeah. Well, I think what is would be a good takeaway for this for now, we're not obviously going to be able to do our own big data research, but even setting up some Google alerts to be able to know when there's something out there like what the New York Times pulls out, anything that's geographically located or based, to be able to learn about our specific areas of our target markets would really be useful.
Absolutely, and to that point, because a lot of these social media platforms have become a focal point for business, and Facebook's a good example of that. You can get very granular in how you target your messaging, and really you have to now because the organic reach has gotten to be just about non-existent. So be real specific about who you're trying to reach with certain messaging. So if you are putting dollars behind that, you are putting those messages in front of the right people and giving them resources that they need and calls to action that they can complete. Is a great point, and Google Alerts is a great feed-in for that to understand what's happening and what search phrases are being used in certain markets. Is also another great thing that you can look up, and glean some insight from.
Definitely. Well, one of our viewers, Sarah Clevenger, just posted that she's tuning in from Kentucky. So, Sarah, you need to definitely see those articles that I posted on the page because they'll come in handy. And also, Janine Bevan says, Miss Kathy, I live in a city surrounded by farms in Mississippi, yet most restaurants and schools source their food from the Cisco truck. It's frustrating. So, yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Let's move on to the next article, and the article is about Pinterest. And it is Pinterest takes a note from Apple to show off shiny new features. And it features how Pinterest is really promoting itself as a platform. And it's kind of funny at first when you think about a social platform having to advertise for people to use it on social sites. But it's not that message in the article that I thought was worth talking about today. What I found interesting was when I looked at the Pinterest article, the Pinterest ad, and it starts out with a woman who's on Pinterest and she runs across a canoe picture, and that gets her to start planning a canoe trip with her, I'm assuming, boyfriend, husband, somebody significant other, and there are storylines like that throughout this whole video. I found myself thinking of wonderful ways to apply this to healthcare that are emotional connections with the patients. And that's a hard thing to do, but it's a very effective thing to do. Can you share anything on the emotional aspect of marketing?
Yeah, we've and I say we, hospitals, healthcare systems have done an okay job at this. Historically speaking, patient video testimonials have always been something that we've efforted and used, and you get a doctor, a patient, and some B-roll, and you wrap all this up, and you have this neat little video about a certain procedure, and that's fine. But and it gives people something to relate to, and so I think that's important. I think as you look at what Pinterest has done, they know those of us, like myself, are going to use Pinterest because of what we do for a living, or we download every app there is, and we use all of these things. We're on all these platforms, but they've got to start trying to figure out, well, how do we reach a larger base? And the point of that is showing benefit, not features. And so, we've really tried to move that way in healthcare marketing and stop talking about the Da Vinci robot itself and start talking about, robotic surgery is a shorter length of stay, there's a smaller incision, things like that, and trying to get people to understand what the outcome or the benefit of this is, and not just look at this piece of equipment or look at this shiny building. Some do that better than others. Some people still like, they invest a lot of money in a piece of equipment or a building, so they want to show it, and that's okay to some degree. I think from the emotional standpoint, where we've got an opportunity is consumer elective type procedures or consumer-driven decisions. So finding physicians being the entry point to that, or a primary care physician specifically. But you start looking at things like weight loss surgery, cosmetics, sleep disorder, heart rhythm disorders, things like that. And then you've kind of got the other side of the house, which is more the episodic type things like ER. In those emergent care type situations that, no one thinks they're going to have a stroke, or they're not going to plan to have a stroke. Well, there's a good chance, so I probably ought to do this, that, or the other. It becomes more of an after the fact, living, life after having a stroke or things like that. And so I think we've gotten a little bit smarter in recent years, in still making, headway there of, trying to bring people down that story path and not just give them a list of features to a procedure or a device.
Yeah, but there's an important question you can ask yourself when you're setting up to post a topic or to give information. The question is, what would motivate people to search for this information? And when I saw this Pinterest ad and my mind was going with all kinds of ideas, I thought, well, why not even relate it to the local area so there's more of a personal aspect of that? And I wrote a post on LinkedIn that really took this article and said, for example, what if in my area, one of the big things here is the Fall Festival. I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of people, probably 100,000 people, come to this location for the Fall Festival, and we have these great famous people and bands that perform, and a huge area where kids can just play all day long, and it's really a big deal here. And to be able to show that in a video message and show someone trying to navigate the chairs and being too obese, too out of breath to make it to the place where you place your chairs so you can enjoy this concert, and giving that message, that motivates people to say, this is my hometown, that's me, and I don't want that anymore. And to show someone go through the process of the before and after, and then going to the concert and enjoying the concert and bringing a kid to the play area, that's an emotional connection that people say, I want what she has.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point, Apple has done a really good job of this over the years, and so people pick up on these types of things, and there's other advertisers out there, obviously, and BMW or Four Seasons. There's a lot of different ones out there that have done a really good job of showing what that experience is, and getting people to want that outcome or want to be a part of that. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. And just as a larger topic of just social media, quote unquote, doing traditional advertising, which is just that's a whole nother topic, but that's just kind of an interesting take.
Yep. Well, let's move on to the next article. Indian healthcare getting reinvented for online audience. Some of you know that I just came back from India, and I was on a medical mission trip, and my job was to help promote the event and to hold Hangouts on air that were actually live case discussions, bringing healthcare information from India live to people in the U.S. who normally would not see some of the heart disease that is so prevalent in India. So this article jumped out at me more than it probably would normally, but the article itself was good because it really pointed out two specific cases that I thought were excellent examples of using social media. And the first one was Apollo Health. And Apollo Health is really touching on some very bold statements, not only saying, here's how to be heart healthy and here's how to eat well, but when you talk about health health issues, heart issues, rheumatic heart disease in India. This is a big deal. And so they start talking about the really nitty-gritty things like heart transplants and all the things that are involved with really serious heart disease and living with it. But what's important, I think, in this article is if you go to that article and then you get the names of those, like Apollo Health, and you search for that site, their website is so well done that it was a breath of fresh air for me when I went to that site and I saw how easy it was to navigate and the messaging that was there. This is a good example for anybody to go to and really look at how it's organized, how that information is organized. Do you have any tips on how to redesign a website, where to begin?
Absolutely. So we do a lot of this, and again, primarily around hospitals and healthcare systems. And what we encourage is typically people come to us or their existing clients or whatever it may be, and it's time for a new website. For whatever reason, there's a lot of catalysts to that. A lot of which in the last couple of years have been around responsive design, so their current sites don't work on a mobile device natively. And so moving to more of a responsive design template, or not template, but software or content management system. And so for whatever reason, they come to us and they want a new website. And usually what we encourage people to do is we have a couple of exercises we walk through where we have these whiteboard sessions where people, we'll ask them where something is on their current website, and they have to draw out the steps of basically where that is. And kind of going through the idea of thinking through this as a consumer, not as a healthcare system and I've got these things I want to promote, but as a consumer in your market. And back to kind of the first article we talked about, our population health or community needs assessments, who is going to be visiting the site and why? And so we're able to take the analytics of the site, which is another great place to start and a very, very important place to start, of hey, your existing site has been in existence for X amount of years. Over the last year, 18 months, or 2 years, here's what the data is telling us. The number one reason people are coming to your site is to look for a job. The second reason is this. And so it really helps frame for them probably a little bit of a different story than what they think. And so depending on who the client is, it's not uncommon to think, no one's coming to a regional hospital's website to look up, information about diabetes. Just doesn't happen. They go to Google. They go to Google and they type in this big long search phrase that's 24 words long, and then they get either a patient community, they get WebMD, they get more definitional content websites. And so to try to move away from the idea of trying to compete on definitional content and look at what your community needs, great hooks for this are health risk assessment tools. There are ways for people to make appointments and come to seminars, sign up for classes, find physicians, things like that, and of course a job. But it's to try to get people plugged in and spending time on the site, understanding then who they are, to be able to then reconnect with them in social and carry on that dialogue. So trying to think a little bit differently and move past that this is no longer just brochureware that's now online, but trying to figure out how do we get people into the site, find out who they are, why they're there, and serve up specific resources to them. So if we know they're coming to the site based on certain search phrases, then why should they have to re-find that information once they arrive at the site? Can't we just tailor the site more personally to them, behavioral search type things?
Well, one of your points that you made really leads into the other example in this article. You said that people really aren't going to go to a hospital website to search for diabetes, that they're going to end up somewhere else because there are so many main sources for that. But one of the examples in this article was mobile technology, being able to have mobile apps that are more convenient. So rather than expecting people to come to the website, why not have the website come to the people through mobile? I think that is a tremendous idea that hospitals, health systems are not using as well as they could. In the case of this article, it was, I forget the name of the company now, Voltar or something. It was an eye place asking people to donate their eyes using a mobile app. Now, maybe donation, eye donation, organ donation isn't the right thing, but the point is mobile comes to the patient rather than the patient going to the website.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think we'll see more of that, not just in hospitals or even not just in healthcare, but just in life in general. You know, we have apps that we use to accomplish certain tasks, and so I don't think we're far off from where we really see that. And you're starting to see more of it, you know, in the recent Apple announcements around, you know, the integration of health into their new operating system for mobile, for example, and you know, different things like that. I think we still are disjointed on the back end of things as systems. I mean, you know, systems we work with just in one system, you know, may have 4 or 5, 6 different EHRs, and so you know, it makes it hard. You know, it's easy to sit in a room and whiteboard like, hey, we should build an app, and this is what it should do, and everybody can come up with wonderful ideas, and the utility of it makes total sense, and the right market's there, and people would use it. They have a way to, you know, drive adoption, etc. But there's just no way to properly on the back end bring the information to the patient in a true patient portal type fashion or whatever it may be. But I do think from just an external website standpoint, we will see more and more you know, move to a mobile app versus in responsive design has allowed us to accomplish that a little bit, but just to really be able to you know, hit those mobile users. And you know, to your point, we use some healthcare, you know, some health risk assessment tools that we've found very successful. They're great for engagement, and they have different topics. And one of them is a breast cancer health risk assessment tool. And with one of our clients, we've been piloting this primarily promotion through Facebook, and we've noticed that on the breast cancer one, over 95% of the people that complete the health risk assessment are doing it via their mobile device. So they're taking a 7-page health risk assessment on their phone, which is crazy to think about, but that tells you, you know, who's a fan of a hospital, where they're accessing Facebook, and now where they're ultimately taking this health risk assessment tool. They're not going to the website. This is how they're interacting with the healthcare system.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time here, so I'm going to run through a couple of these quickly. The next article is Why Pharma Should Rethink How to Use Social Media. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this. We do know that around June there were some new recommendations that came out for pharma, specifically around short social communication. And the main part of this article that I want people to go back to and look at is that it really defines how to know proper return on investment. The concept basically is you can't use some of the traditional measuring, that you have to look at who is responding. You might be out there in the whole digital sphere, but it's a matter of who is interacting with you and who is finding your information useful. Do you have any really quick tips on ways to sell social engagement to those who might not really understand how social engagement works, so that you can say, yes, there is a return on investment, and here's how you know?
Absolutely. I think ultimately you have to first identify what your goal is up front. You know, is this patient acquisition? I mean, are we literally just looking for more engagement online? And what does that mean? Is that likes? Is that comments? We want people sharing our content with people that are not already connected with us. You know, so in essence, increasing our reach. So what's the goal initially? And then so once we know that, because I think historically we've just been here because the competitor had a Facebook page, so we need to get a Facebook page. And then Google Plus launched, and it was invite only, so everybody had to have an invite, you know, and we didn't have a really good reason for being there. And to figure out a lot of these platforms, you do have to be there, and you do have to play around with them, and that's okay, and that's not really what I'm talking about. But when we're using this for business case, or you know, you even see now that more and more businesses are using Instagram. Well, now I've noticed where Instagram is coming out or has come out or piloting, you know, more of a metrics side to their platform, where historically when just consumers are using something, they don't particularly care. Like nobody's logging in, you know, to see, you know, how many people have done this or that or the other. But with businesses are using it, you know, CFOs are holding our feet to the fire on, well, what's the return? These things are not technically free. Yes, you can sign up for free, but people have to do it, and people have to spend time on these platforms. So identifying what those goals are up front, tracking those over a period of time, and then being able to report back and show. And so some very simple things, like in a healthcare setting, is if you know what your contribution margins are for certain procedures, Weight loss surgery is a good example because it's consumer driven. If you're able to promote weight loss surgery on any of the online channels, and then show that that led to X amount of people attending a seminar, and then your seminar to conversion, seminar to surgery conversion rate, and then your average contribution margin, you can give some projections pretty quickly up front and not have to wait till the very end to see how all that panned out. Now, obviously, you want to report that as well, but trying to keep senior leadership in the loop all along the way has been a way to really help them understand. And then I think with just the mainstream adoption, so when they're at home watching, or they're watching college football, NFL, whatever it may be, every commercial has a hashtag on it now, and then every announcer has a Twitter handle, and et cetera. So I think some of the perception of these tools have started to change a little bit as well. So I think that's helped.
Yep. Well, let's get to the last article. We've got just a few minutes here before we invite people to join us live. It is how to use the LinkedIn publishing platform. And I've been using that for a couple of days now. I have not used it in the past because there's only me and I just can't do everything, but I decided to take the dive and start posting some things just on LinkedIn using the publishing platform. And we'll see how that plays out over the next week, and I'll report back. As I was looking at other other publishing articles, I found one that really caught my attention, and it was titled Lessons from the Ice Bucket Challenge, and it was by David Sable. And his post was about the Ice Bucket Challenge that we talked about last week, and how the Ice Bucket Challenge was such a successful campaign up until a certain point. And I think they've reported now that ALS has received over $41 million in donations in the past month because of this campaign, because it cited what it was for. It had a specific action. There was a specific thing to do, and that was post a video of yourself, which everybody loves to post videos of themselves, right?
Right. And
then challenge someone else to do the same. So it's the gift that keeps on giving. But his post was that this has become so viral that it has just in the very recent past become diluted. And people have forgotten what the original challenge was all about, and that there is a limited life to these viral campaigns. So because I really appreciated the message that he posted, I decided to put up these guidelines of what the ALS challenge really entails. Not only that, but I have had a few people have challenged me to the Ice Bucket Challenge, and I told them that they had to actually post a video in order for me to respond, and they did. So I am going to take the Ice Bucket Challenge as one of the last. Let me do one last thing before I do that. I'm going to post. Let me post here. See, I'm working two computers now. You're going to see way too much of me that you probably never want to see. I'm going to post the lessons post that I found on LinkedIn. And I'm also going to post the link to join us live in a few minutes, although you may want to just wait until after I do the Ice Bucket Challenge. So we're going to go through the steps as they're supposed to be done. All right, so first you're supposed to state that I am accepting this Ice Bucket Challenge for ALS. On behalf of ALS, my aunt was one of the ALS patients. She died 2 years ago. And so I'm going to take the Ice Bucket Challenge. I have my water here. I'm hoping that the sun warmed it a lot because I'm about to put the ice cubes in it. So everybody knows that I have lots of ice cubes here. I'm going to move my laptop far enough away that I don't damage it. And that's cold. So now I'm going to donate my money. I hope that other people will continue to donate. I am now going to challenge you, Reed Smith, to the Ice Bucket Challenge. And Gary Levin, if you have not already done the Ice Bucket Challenge, you challenged me first, so I'm going to challenge you back and make sure that you have a video and a donation. And you can donate at alsa.org. Just click on the red button. So that is the end of my Ice Bucket Challenge. I don't know if anybody's going to join us today for our chat live. I'll give them a couple of minutes and then we will see. So, okay, so Janine says she's watching the Ice Bucket Challenge. I have posted the link to join us live. I'm just going to give it a couple minutes in case people didn't get a chance to push the button and join live. And if not, sometimes we have people that just have to get their work done, and we just play here on the internet, so you guys can.
Oh, yes.
So have you done an ice bucket challenge? I guess I should have asked you before I challenged you.
No, no, I have not. I have not yet. I have not yet. So I think I may be one of the few. So about
Well, you
everybody.
have to think
It's about my entire news feed. It seems like on Facebook is either back to school pictures or the ice bucket challenge. So
well, if you don't want to do the ice bucket challenge, what I understand is you can forego the ice and donate $100.
yeah, that's right.
Of
That's
course, I should have told you 1,000, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. But it's interesting. It's interesting. This is one of those things that's really taken off. So I mean, you see entire football teams doing it. You see, leadership teams at hospitals and physician groups and individuals. It's an interesting deal for sure.
Well, I think part of the reason that it is taking off is there is a community aspect. There's a feel-good aspect to this, and quite frankly, healthcare has a lot of feel-good in it. So I think that this is a good example of something that somebody can come up with on a local level. We go back to that Pinterest article that I was referring to, and one of the things they talk about there is a UK government asking people to post selfies that helped promote their message. Well, people love to post selfies. So what kind of selfies can a local hospital or health system ask people to post on behalf of the message they're trying to deliver? I think that's a good challenge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can think of those national observances, whether it's Heart Month or obviously all the different cancers have different months and things like that. Even leading into the summer, if you're in a town that has a lake or a lot of outdoor activities, you think about summer safety tips and things like that. And so there's a lot of opportunities, I think, in asking for engagement is great. So that's a great way to get people involved and make people part of where you're not just constantly telling people things. You're interacting with them. So that's really important and something interesting to be really cool to think about.
Yeah, and the fact that the hashtag, we talk about hashtags a lot because hashtags are really very useful, not only because it allows one conversation to pull in all the conversations into one topic, but because if that hashtag has the keywords in it as well, then you maintain that brand, you maintain that message for whatever that campaign is that you're trying to promote.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I don't see anyone joining us today. I did post the link several minutes ago, so I'm going to assume that we have a lot of people who are working today, and we just had to have this fun ourselves. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude today's What's News in Healthcare Social Media. And Reed, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that we had this reunion. I hope it's not going to be the last time because our talk a while ago was so useful. I'd love to have you on as a regular guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. Anytime.
Okay. Well, this concludes today's broadcast of What's News in Healthcare Social Media. I'm Kathy Brown, and I just took the Ice Bucket Challenge. I don't normally look this way. I hope that you'll tune in next week, same time, every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. See you then. Bye.